Welcome back. We'll wrap up the abridged version of the show today by finding out what the papers are saying on the issues today. I have just the Punch and the Guardian for review. The front page of the Punch this morning: APC leaders fail to agree on zoning of offices. Of course, the writer here, Senate President Mark visits Buhari. You get details of all of that. It's on page 3 of the Punch. There's a lot of talk now as regards whether the All Progressives Congress merger itself will stay together, even in the midst of the multiplicity of interests here and there. Recalling also that hundreds of party members from other parties also defected and joined the All Progressives Congress. Of course, many are asking what happens to the 5 PDP governors, what happens to the CPC, the ANPP camp, how do they zone out all of these appointments? Well, only time can tell. The front page of the Punch also features an interesting picture this Friday morning. An anti-xenophobia activist in front of a banner during a protest march against South Africa's xenophobic attacks in Johannesburg. And you also see other protesters. I think the good news also is, the good thing rather, is that the Nigerian media also needs to talk about the position of thousands of concerned South Africans about this development. There are South Africans who are marching daily on major streets to show their displeasure in some of these very barbaric acts. Reps raised 2015 budget by 134.5 billion naira, past 4.4 trillion naira. That's on page 29. Well, it looks as if over 2 trillion, about 2.6 trillion of this budget is still going into recurrent expenditure, while you have just some above 700 billion naira going for capital expenditure. If that's the budget that the Buhari administration will be running by, maybe we might not expect anything different from the norm in the first year, but only time can tell. Protesting workers shot Akwa Ibom Assembly. That's on page 5 of the Punch. Fan stops Eric flights from Abuja. You get details of that on page 29 if you care to check. I am ex-Bayelsa government-led presidential inauguration committee. Okay, ex-Bayelsa governor, as well as Pius Ayim, secretary to the Government of the Federation head presidential inauguration committee. That's on page 12. Federal government to National Assembly halt actions on constitution amendment. That's on page 2. CJ sets up panel to probe Mimiko's deputy. You want to find details of that on page 8 of the Punch. Let's take a commercial break now, and I'll be back with details from the Guardian newspaper. Don't go away.
Any tribe that rules has solid rules.
Rule number 1, friends stay close. Friends in the tribe, stay closer. Feel me?
Rule number 2, in the tribe, you always know what's up with Facebook, WhatsApp, BB, and Twitter. Guess what? It's free.
Rule number 3, there are no rules with SMS. It's endless. Yes, boss.
Rule number 4, enjoy very long conversations with that special someone.
Enjoy endless connections to your friends with free calls, free WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, and BBM. You also enjoy up to 200% bonus on your recharges to call all networks. Migrate now by dialing *312# on Start to Live. Endless connections.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back. On the front page of The Guardian this morning, APC leaders' power-sharing meeting ends in deadlock. The writer here: Southwest, Northeast fight over Senate reps top posts. Want to find out what that's all about? You'll find that details on the front page. It continues on page 2 of The Guardian. The front page picture also tells some stories. A representative of the APC, co-chairman of the Handing Over Committee, Chief Timper Sivia. On the left is a representative of the federal government, Senator Aim Pazaim, and Secretary of the committee, Mrs. Ibukun Odusote, at its inaugural meeting at the State House, Abuja. President-elect Muhammadu Buhari and Senate President David Mark during a congratulatory visit by the latter in Abuja yesterday. Federal government senators to let Supreme Court decide on Constitution amendment. Reps fault president's withholding of assent. You get details of that on page 2 of The Guardian. And to other news notes here, troops invade Boko Haram stronghold, Sambisa Forest, that's on page 3. Lack of testing laboratory, bane of Nigeria's agri products, says Aganga. Ondo Chief Judge raises panel on move to impeach Deputy Governor. You'll find details of that on page 6 of The Guardian. And it's day 375, bring back our girls. Of course, The Guardian is still counting. All right, let's prospect very quickly and watch out for some news that will be following next week. Of course, there are expectations that the core reasons behind the sack of the Inspector General of Police will also come to the fore as news break in next week, especially after the supplementary election. All eyes on the Nigerian police force, especially the acting Inspector General Solomon Arese. Many are beginning to talk about the partisan nature of security operatives, the importance of having our security operatives being independent at this time, especially during election nearing. Of course, there also talks about developments on xenophobic attack in South Africa. There seem to be a school of thought within Nigeria who are of the opinion that it isn't as bad as the media seems to have portrayed it, that no single Nigerian life has been lost in the South African attack. Well, we can't confirm that. We're in Nigeria, but the bottom line is that there is palpable fear amongst foreigners in South Africa, especially Nigerians. We spoke earlier this week with one of such schooling in East London in South Africa, who says that Durban and even Johannesburg seem to be a no-go area for many of them, ensuring that they don't keep late night outside. And he also said that jokingly, you hear people say to South African friends that we are friends now, but I hope that you don't have my head in the heat of this particular crisis. The Zulu King also spoke during this week to some native South Africans, telling them to ensure that they sheath their sword and not kill anyone. There are interesting videos you'll find on the social media. One of them threatening foreigners, asking them to leave within a particular date. Nigerian government saying that if it gets worse, we might take back or withdraw our nationals from the South African country. The Senate is also reminding South Africa about the role Nigeria played during its apartheid challenge, asking the South African government to wake up to its responsibility. So in the coming week, we expect to also see the involvement of other international community, the African Union, as well as optimistically now a reduction, or so to speak, yes, of course, a reduction in all of these crises, and then we have what they call some sort of a way of calming down the impact of this on the nation and indeed Africa at large. There are also tensed nerves within the country. You hear the NLC, the Labour Congress, you hear some protest groups within the country talking about Nigeria shutting down some businesses that belong to South Africa. Of course, the need to stem down that nerve would also come up next week, especially the bottom line would be the development in South Africa, which would impact greatly on how the news will break and what will be told. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the show for today. Stick around. Don't go away.
From time immemorial, women have birthed life, shaped character, and by extension, influenced the society. Moremi of Ife, and Moten of Benin, Queen Aminat of Zaria, all women of influence and power.
Whether it's before election, after election.
How ironical, women being so powerful yet have few grounds in decision making.
I see you as a wife, and I see you as a wife to a man.
We are talking women in politics.
A woman will be bold enough to stand up and say, I want to become president of Nigeria.
Only on Core TV News.
Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on Digit 360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.
Welcome back. Checking out the trends at which this news will go in the coming week. Of course, need to also remind you the position of the PDP at this time. You recall that prior to the breaking of such trend in this week, there's been a clamor for the sack of the National Working Committee members of the PDP as well as the chairman. The chairman, Adamu Moazu, came out to say that it wasn't necessary for them to leave, that it's important for them to strategize. And I think that also happened in the course of this week when the PDP seemed to have vowed now to regain power in 2019. To achieve these, members of the National Working Committee as well as the chief chairman of the party have resolved to work together. You recall that the APC won March 28 and April 11 elections by producing Nigeria's next president in the person of Muhammadu Buhari and a majority of the state governors, and also won most of the seats in the National Assembly and state houses of assembly. Rising from this meeting in Abuja, the National Working Committee of the PDP agreed to adopt strategies towards winning the elections in 2019. I'm joined on the show this morning by legal practitioner barrister UZONO. Thank you very much for finding time to come on the show today.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Let's kickstart very quickly with the sack of the Inspector General of Police. Many believe it's a rude shock to have that happen now. From an informed opinion, have you been able to identify what reasons could have culminated into this particular experience?
Well, I think there might be several reasons, but I think the outgoing president likes to keep things to himself, which is good because sometimes if you've exposed what the person has done, you give the person a happening. So I think that's it. But I've heard in the grapevine that the Inspector General was more or less reporting to the president-elect rather than the outgoing president. So that talks about loyalty, and that talks about not even loyalty per se. It shows that the IG wasn't more to everybody, but probably was more in favor of a particular person. So you can't have that kind of person head an administration that will oversee the interests of everybody. So if that was the reason, that was a good reason to have taken him out. It's just the same thing with having a chief judge that is pro-north or pro-south and all of that. He won't be able to be impartial, and there will be bias and all of that. So if that's the reason, then it's a good reason. But
have you also considered the fact that supplementary elections are going to be held this Saturday in some states of the Federation, Abia, Taraba, and Imo State? Juxtapose that with the very controversial dependent nature of the police on the executive. What do you make of it?
Well, I think for the IG to have to go, it's okay. And the supplementary elections, if INEC feels they are mandatory and necessary, there's no problem. INEC has the powers under the law to do supplementary elections, to do the actual elections, to collate and to announce the results. So if INEC feels it's okay, then it's okay. If the IG has to go for another person to take his place, there's no problem about that. It's all about the prerogative of the president, knowing full well that he's the chief security officer of the state of Nigeria as a whole, and commander-in-chief also. So you can decide who stays as a security chief, or who goes, or who takes his place. So there's no problem in all of the arrangements.
Perhaps it also boils down to the kind of power that the executive exerts on such agencies like the police force. Many are beginning to talk about how do we get to that point in time when the police, the Nigerian military, and the rest will be independent of the powers of the executive.
Except you amend the laws, you cannot really get that done. You see, the problem between ISP Mbu then, the Commissioner of Police in Rivers State and Amechi as at that time came out of all of these issues, because the governor felt, the outgoing governor felt, the police should be answerable to him, the commissioner should be answerable to him, and probably that one felt that it was in his place to organize the security of the state, and every other person was supposed to be more or less under him in terms of prerogative and who is higher to organize the security of the state. So from there were clashes. Now if you make them independent, it will be good, but the way the law is, the police is part and parcel of the executive. So you cannot really remove them from the executive arm, because the executive has to enforce the laws. And they have to do all they can. The army is under the executive, the police is under the executive, the customs, whatever forces there are to enforce the laws are under the executive.
Just a minute, sir, do you foresee this incoming administration taking a step in that direction? Because we cannot leave the independence of the police to the prerogative of the man in charge. There has to be a law that determines who hires, who fires, who does the Inspector General of Police, who is he answerable and accountable to. Does he do things professionally, or we have to continue in this political coloration of the decisions made by such agencies?
The incoming government cannot do that. Why? Because it will be shooting itself in the foot. You have to appoint somebody that's loyal to you, that will carry out your orders. So if President Jonathan, the outgoing president, feels that this man will not carry his orders or might undermine his intent for the security of the state, or for absolute loyalty when it comes to doing the exact thing that he wants done, they can fire him. The same thing, the government coming in may look for somebody suitable that will be able to give effect to their intent when it comes to security, when it comes to the protection of the sovereignty of the nation and all of that. So there's no need removing the office and making it independent. As far as I'm concerned, it's better you leave it that way. It's the same thing having a bodyguard in the house, or having a driver or a chef. You have to decide who stays in that position. You cannot just bring somebody who is independent to guard your house. You give him instruction, you come back, he just decides not to open the door for you. You understand? Because it's acting independent. He gets paid by somebody else, but he's protecting your house, and you can't enter the house when you want to. Or I just feel, okay, let me just open this door, I'm just doing you a favor. Why? Because he's being paid by some other person. So I don't see it as being necessary.
But isn't that the reason, or the root cause for most of the challenges that we experience today? Because we seem to see the executive wield so much security power to oppress the opposition. That has been the allegation. So how do we change the norm and get that system working again, even with this same stuff that we're talking about?
Yes, we talked about professionalism in policing, policing matters and all of that, and then whether there's any need for us to have a police that is independent of the executive. Well and fine, there are arguments on both sides. there are issues as to complicity, loyalty, and all of that. But you see, police is a professional. I think before the elections, I had the IG giving instruction to his officers and telling them that, look, you have to be professionals in the manner, the way and manner you carry out your policing during this election. We don't want to see this, we don't want to see this. The same thing. The area commanders gave instructions, and it was good because that's on a professional level. When it comes to policing at that level, you have to understand that professionalism comes to play. The issues of whether the police was being used to harass the opposition then and or even now are issues of perception. People just wake up and they can concoct anything, or they just read the way things are and then they draw to conclusions. If a sitting governor of the state then was fomenting trouble and trying to make the state a place where you cannot have peace, or where it had become a hotbed of crisis, series of crises, and then the police is forced to act the way they did, are we going to infer that the police was being used by the government in power?
But I recall that you were here during the House of Reps drama, where the police allegedly tear-gassed certain members of the House of Reps. We also discussed the fact that the IGP at the time could not refer to Aminu Tambo as the Speaker of the House. Would you call that some perception or also a figment of the opposition's imagination?
It couldn't have been that of the sitting governor. There were issues then, and the issue was whether the Senate president, having been sponsored by the PDP, could decamp while still in office to another party.
The House of Reps.
And then the police felt the police is to give effect to the law. It doesn't matter whether the courts have pronounced on the matter or not. If the law is clear for everybody to understand, the police can give effect to it. For instance, the police sees a man walking about aimlessly in the street and feels that this man might be up to committing a crime.
Okay.
The police has the prerogative to arrest that person and can do a proper investigation and can even put the person in the cell. But if it is now satisfied that the person is not about to commit a crime, they can let the person go. It's the same thing that we had during that period. They felt that Tambuwal, after decamping to another party while still the Speaker of the House of Representatives, had lost that legal ground to enter into the House or to preside over the House. That was why they acted the way they did. It's a professional thing. They might have been wrong, but the proper cause for
Were they wrong, actually?
They were right. You remember we canvassed it. A lawyer even came here and said Tambuwal ought to have been arrested. Now, if you knew that you shouldn't sit in the House for any reason, haven't lost the ground to so sit because you have done what the law says you shouldn't do, then you are seen as somebody who is breaking the law and should be picked up by the police. So the police acted within the confines of what the law gives them the right to do. So as at that level, people were at the stage of speculation. Was it right to have decamped? Was there a problem in the old PDP or new PDP or whatever? Is there a crisis? Everybody were just speculating. So the police too speculated and said, well, this man ought not to be in the House, and acted the way they did. So we can't blame the police. We can only say that they were acting professionally.
But it did appear as if they were in support of a party that seemed to be the executive at that time. Because at that time, you recall, it was a battle between the APC and the PDP, fighting for the leadership of the House, being in the hand of someone who is more loyal, so to speak. Of course, obviously from the way it turned out, Tambuwal wasn't that loyal to the PDP. So can you absolutely absolve the police of blame in that political disagreement?
Do not forget that the opposition then anchored most of their things on sensationalism, propaganda. So they can make you see issues the way they want you to see it. They were very good at that. In fact, right now we are seeing that most of the promises, bogus promises that the party gave, they are beginning to change the goalpost. You understand?
On what issues?
Yes. I think I was just going through some. I was told that the manifesto of the APC is not the Bible. It's not cast in Bible or Quran. It could be tinkered with. It could be changed.
Who said that?
I think the president-elect was granting an interview on TVC, so I learned. And when you have such an issue, you had a party that was struggling to retain power, and you had a party that was struggling to come in, and both of them playing dirty. We cannot assume that the police was leaning towards a particular party. Because if a crisis is begun in a state, and then somebody goes to the street and tries to hack somebody down and the police shoots him, as far as that person is supporting a party, that party will use that to its own advantage. You remember the Magnus Abbey's issue where somebody said he was shot on the chest. When we now checked and all the pictures, we saw that there were no bullet wounds and all of that. And he was flown abroad and all of that. So we are looking at politics of intrigues. We are looking at a whole lot. And we cannot drag the police in the mud because we are trying to look whether they are aligning to one party or the other. The police acted in the spur of the moment as their judgment will allow them to act, and as the law that empowers them to act. Except you tinker with the law, the police will act the way it is acting. Like we are talking about the xenophobic effect. If it were in Nigeria, you would have seen the police acting just the same way you see a regular Nigerian police act. They want to quell the circumstances, perhaps because of our drive to have foreign direct investment. We are very eager to have foreigners establish business because it will help our economy grow. We understand that, and almost all of our laws tend to favor that bend. So if you have a crisis like that, you see that the police will act in the way that we expect them to act, quell the circumstances before it grows and gets out of hand. It's the same thing that we had in Lagos. If that had become a crisis, you would have seen the way the police would have handled it. It's a professional thing.
Okay.
Let's try to understand the police, and let us not look at them as those who are leaning towards a political party.
But now we have a situation whereby an IGP who still has about 4 years before retirement, who has an amazing retinue of academic pedigree, has a law background, probably has a master's and bachelor degree, as well. Considering the investment that has been made in such individual, would you say that it is fair that we leave the decision to hire and fire to a single individual? I don't know how this worked, whether it was an outright sack or it was a forced retirement. But then, many are also asking, how long more will it take us to produce such an individual as a Sulaiman Abba?
The man that is coming in is as eminently qualified as the man going out. When you look at the police force, you have people in the police force at the top brass who have used every opportunity to enhance themselves educationally. We had quite a lot of them in the Nigerian law school then. They were becoming legal practitioners, going through the courses and all of that. And this one coming in has masters, I think twin masters in 2 different specializations, and is also a lawyer too. So when we see the enormous scholarship that abounds at that level, and the people coming in to man those offices, it's something that we should take pride in. Because obviously to enable us know that these people are acting within the frame of the law, unlike people who act without knowing the legal implications. These ones know the legal implications, and they can easily call their officers in check and tell them, look, you are going overboard. So it's a good thing for Nigerian police, and I expect that we'll have more of that professionalism, through the rank and file.
Trickle down the line.
Trickle down the line. At least the lower officers will be inspired by the fact that the top officers are taking every opportunity to enhance themselves educationally. So if it can go down, trickle down, we'll now have a police force that is more responsive and is aware of what their duties are without infringing on the rights of the ordinary Nigerian. It's very important.
Let's say let's try to foresee how this will work out. There are some who are saying it is the success or the otherwise, or perhaps the role that the police will play in the forthcoming supplementary elections that would determine the true intention behind sacking Sulaiman and hiring Solomon. How do you react to that?
I think it will not add anything nor remove anything from it. It's just going to be the way it has always been. At least we have a new precedent to follow. Elections should be free, fair, and credible. And the president has already called to appreciate or recognize the fact that the president-elect has won, which is a good step in the right direction. We also have in Lagos State, where Agbaje called everybody to congratulate him. So when you have these things already in place, this precedent, and then the way the world is responding, because they didn't expect that of an African, the way the world is responding, and then the way the other people who are defeated in the gubernatorial polls are also taking a cue. It's a healthy development. I don't see the present government, the outgoing government, trying to mortgage that political credit it has acquired. The changing of the police boss will not have anything negative on the supplementary elections. It's just going to be the normal election. Now, why do you have to fight when you have already lost your own? Because you fight when it favors you. There must be something in there for you. Now, your own has gone. Lagos has gone. Why do you need to fight for supplementary? And mind you, you remember even when it was there were some states that does the election within, not with the other states. Right. Within the 4-year time. Those people, most of them were won by APC, and he congratulated them and asked them to deliver the dividends of democracy to their people. So why would he now in supplementary election when he has nothing in this supplementary election to pursue or gain?
Oh, there are other school of thoughts that will tell you that adding 3 states to the PDP governed state would also amount to some tangible progress for the new opposition. But let's wrap it up this way.
I can add to that.
Please do.
You see, it would be foolhardy to assume that, because the truth of the matter is the people are now well aware that they decide who becomes their governor. Now, if by the body language of the incoming government they have shown that they can shift goalposts, they can do a lot of other things, then the people might ask themselves, look, are we safe with the incoming government? Why don't we choose this one now that we are sure?
Wouldn't that be quite too early to assume for an administration that has not even started at all? Because in that same interview, you recall that the president-elect also talked about Nigerians seeing change within 3 days of assuming power. So there are lots more than what you're saying that he mentioned during that interview.
There are quite a lot. He has been granting a series of interviews. One was on Boko Haram. The present government, the outgoing government, has done quite a lot to recapture most of the areas that were taken by Boko Haram. When you come in, what are you going to do? That was a BBC interview, and he said, hit them with what? He asked the man about twice, and all of that. Then you talk about the Chibok girls. He said they can't promise that you immediately bring them. But these were promises that were cast in stone. And said, look, I'm going to deliver this. I'm going to do. I listened to those promises.
Now, did he actually say that he was going to get back
and
the
there are quite
girls?
other promises.
No,
the
I'm asking you now, did Buhari say he was going to bring back the Chibok girls? Because it is only logical for him to have said that if after a year of abduction and then the present administration has no clue about where they are, what he said recently was that if they are still alive, we will get them back. I mean, what else would they have expected him to say? For someone who is not in power yet.
We will get them back. It's different from we cannot guarantee you that we can get them back.
That's exactly what he said, that if they are alive, that they cannot guarantee. Of course, there's no way they can verify. But they do not have the machinery to verify.
During the electioneering, the promises were yea and amen. They were settled. We have to take this thing seriously because we have to hold our politicians by their words. The apparatus of we've not even entered. I would have preferred that the swearing in had taken place. The president-elect is already installed, has been sworn in, and then he can now say, okay, based on the record that I have, based on this that I've seen, this we can guarantee you now, but let's look at the time frame of this, and that's what the Nigerian populace are saying. Give us a time frame. Let us have something to hold on to. Let it not be vague. Let it not be a puff, more or less. You know, once we can believe, the Nigerian is somebody that is like, he believes that a miracle can happen.
That's right.
So if you represent that miracle, they want to see that miracle. They don't want excuses.
But would it also wouldn't it be unfair to ask Nigerians to expect a miracle? Because it is the same submission that if there's a rot, it's a rot that has been there for over a decade, that it might also take time to bring the desired changes to bear. Isn't that quite logical enough? As long as there are practical steps being taken that are visible to the eye in the right direction.
Let me tell you one thing about the psyche of the Nigerian. The Nigerian is good in two things. He believes that he can be the best Super Eagles coach. And he believes that he can be the best Nigerian president. That all resources are available. Just go and do what you ought to do. Now, don't forget that prior to the elections, I listened to Lai Mohammed's debate. On the other side was I think the director of the power project or something like that. And that one was busy issuing out statistics, what they had done, timeline, how long it takes to build a refinery, a power plant, up to when you now produce the light and integrate it. You understand? And then the transmission proper. And Lai Mohammed was saying these things are doable within 4 months. I listened to those debates, and he is a mouthpiece of the APC. Now, they cannot sit down. They talked a lot about the Chibok girls. They talked about other issues. And now the time has come, except they did not envisage that they will win the elections. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe they thought, well, we might not win the election, but let's just go and promise it. It might work.
But how long really, as an individual, are you giving this incoming administration before you start kicking? Because you are already kicking before the inauguration proper.
Yes.
I'm amazed, actually.
I don't have anything against the incoming government, but I want them to fulfill most of the promises because I'll be better off.
Okay.
If they fulfill it, I'll be proud to come back here and say, wow, I didn't give them the benefit of the doubt, but see what they have done. Amazing. I am good in giving credit, but I don't like excuses because I've also been in leadership positions, and I know that excuses, your followers don't take excuses.
How long exactly would you
So it's better, don't give us any excuses. Get into office and begin to perform.
You're shying away from that question. How long would you give the Buhari administration before
to deliver? I expect them to deliver in 1 year.
In 1 year.
If they deliver in 1 year, I'll be here to say kudos. You remember when I come here, I will say Fashola did this, he did this, it's good, I like what he did here. If this is not good, I'll say no, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. That's what sensible criticism is all about. You don't just throw everything off and say, what has he done? He has done nothing. I've had people say that the outgoing president did nothing. And I asked them, are you sure you have been following the events in the country? You understand? And I'm not going to come here and then say the incoming government is not going to perform. No. What I'm saying is, don't give excuses yet. Take power and then do what you promised, at least to the best of your abilities. Nigerians are appreciative people. They can say, okay, he did this, he couldn't do this, he did this well. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's give him 8, let's give him 7. And that's what reasonable criticism is about. It's not to just come and then say the person is not good.
1 year is fair enough. I've had people on this show who mentioned 100 days, 6 months, and all of that.
Yeah, Fashola will give you 100 days and he will perform. The same thing with Akpabio. But since they have said that the mess the country had been for ages, so I will give them a year. Others will give them 100 days. I know Nigerians are not patient people, but I will try and be patient. I will just give one.
Thank you for coming today on the show. I've been speaking with legal practitioner UZONO. We hope that you also find time to join us subsequently yet again.
Thank you.
It's a wrap on the show this week. God willing, I'll be back next week with another exciting edition of Core Digest. Don't forget that the weekend edition, we call it Core Digest Extra, kickstart 9:30 tomorrow with Frank Omolape. Stick around for the top of the hour news. Don't go away.
You can now watch Core TV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to Core TV Primetime Days.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click Core TV, leave a space, then News. Core TV News, a 24-hour news station.